Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this seminar organized by UVMA. So my name is Patrick Rérat, and I'm the co-director of the UVMA, which is the Observatory for Cycling and Active Mobilities at the University of Lausanne. I'm the co-director with my colleague Bengt Kayser, and we're going to organize the discussion after the talk. A few words about the UVMA. As you may know, we are quite a new organization. The UVMA was founded in November 2020, and we have several objectives. One, of course, is to do research on cycling and active mobilities. A second one is to foster teaching in these fields. And a last one, which is very important for us, is also to create debates, to foster exchanges between consultants, researchers, politicians, activists, advocates on cycling and active mobilities. So this spring, we are organizing a seminar series on cycling policies. So this seminar series is organized by UVMA and UCI, Union Cycliste Internationale. And we have four seminars, four talks this spring. We'll hear about Paris in April, we'll hear about the Netherlands, and in June, the day before the day of the bike, the official day of the bike, we'll have a presentation on Wollongong in Australia. But today, we're heading to Seville, and we have the great pleasure to welcome Manuel Calvo. He's a sustainable mobility consultant, and he will explain us the case of Seville, the experience of Seville, where the number of daily trips made by bike increased very rapidly in a very short time. I think that's a very good example about implementing cycling policies and developing cycling in a city. So there's going to be the presentation by Manuel, then a discussion. If you have comments, questions, remarks, please use the chat, and we'll gather all of them and we'll forward them to Manuel. Please don't forget to turn off your microphone. And yeah, I would like to thank Manuel Calvo for having accepted our invitation. It's great to have you here, and we're looking forward to hearing more about Seville. So you can start sharing your screen. I think you are allowed to do that. And then the floor is yours. Perfect.
Just activate your microphone, Manuel. You're mute.
Okay, let's start again. Thanks a lot to UVMA for having me here today. It's a pleasure for me to be in front of you, more than 80 people, which is impressive, willing to hear, to listen to what we've done and what we have achieved on the experience of promoting cycling mobility in the city of Seville. So bonjour, everyone. Buenos dias. And I don't know how to say that in more languages, so I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't speak German or anything else. So, well, we are trying to, or I am trying to make you understand what we did in Seville, how we promoted cycling in a process that started in 2003, actually. So we've been doing this from the last 15 or so years. And I think Seville, it's a good example to know how to improve cycling mobility in a city with no cycling culture. So Seville is located in the southwestern part of Europe, really near to Africa. So you would think that it's a place where a city where which doesn't have actually the culture, the cycling culture of Central Europe. So actually on the backlash that we had to face back in 2006, 2007, when the infrastructure actually was built, we had to face actually this, what I think it's a myth. Cycling is not about culture. Cycling is about having good infrastructure and having a city which is friendly to cycling. And when suddenly cycling becomes something that's comfortable and it's useful to do. So I think it's not about culture. So that's actually Seville is there. It's located in the southwestern part of Spain, really near to the Atlantic Ocean. It has really hot summers. So in summertime, Seville gets to 40 degrees Celsius really easily. We don't have strong or real bad winters, but it rains in springtime and in fall time, in autumn time. You can get rain in Seville really frequently, or it's often it's something that happens often. It's not claim it that you can say that it hasn't rained a lot. So it does rain. So this is the metropolitan area of the city. Is the Guadalquivir River going from north to south, the historical branch of the river, and the historical center. Seville is the head, the central city is the head of a metropolitan area of around 1.5 million inhabitants, and the central city is located just in the middle of that metropolitan area, and we are talking about 700,000 inhabitants. And the configuration of the city, it's really special. Even though it's a globular city, and it has a radial structure of the big avenues or the of the road structure of the city. You can see here that it has a really huge, a really big historical center, which is actually the third biggest historical center in Europe. So it has 2 kilometers in any direction of diameter, that historical center. So that brings to the city a sense of an old built city, and it's something that characterizes the city in its urban structure and a lot. So as I said, there was a non-existent biking culture in the city. You know, it's this myth about the Mediterranean city that they want to go by car everywhere. Of course, cars had and still has actually, they still have a high consideration. It's considered as a socioeconomic status indicator. So owning a big car, it means that you have more or higher socioeconomic status. Of course, the urban planning has been devoted to cars and to traffic and to the fluidity of traffic, of that flow of traffic from the last 6, 7, or 8, or even 8 decades. And from the 80s, it happened a high raising of car mobility in the metropolitan area, but also in the central city. So even though I wanted to share this picture with you, where you can take a look at the city, street of the city of the first half of the 20th century, when the bike actually was present around the city. That happened actually in every city in the world. When the population had not that really big access to the automobile, and they used the bike as a tool for getting around in the city. So this is the evolution of the model share of the city. As a Mediterranean city, which is a compact urban structure, we do have a lot of mobility that happened and is still happening by walking. So we have lots of walking trips in an everyday basis, but it used to be higher. So as you can see there, in 1983, we had more than 45% of the daily trips made by walking. And that, something like that happened till the 1990s, where there has been really lowering of that modal share of walking in favor of the parallel increase of car mobility, as you can see there. So actually, we have lost some trips in public transit, but actually the big change, I think that you can find that on many cities around Europe and even around the world, that the main change is that there's been a parallel evolution of lowering walking trips and not motorized trips in favor of car trips. So this was the shape of the what you could call the network, the cycling network and cycling infrastructure around the city. You can see there in 2005, we had just little pieces of bike lanes, unconnected, usually associated with parks. Because you know, the bike was considered as a leisure tool, so only people who wanted to go to parks were willing actually to use the bike as a recreation mode. So the bike was not understood as a tool for mobility in the city. So this was actually the shape of the infrastructure, of the cycling infrastructure that we had in the city in 2005. But actually, what's happening in Seville right now is that I'm going to show you some pictures about that in order to understand actually who is cycling in Seville today. So people of all ages are cycling in Seville today. People that are not using sports clothes or anything like that, no helmets. People who are maybe using the bike to get around, and also with their stuff, problems of parking on the parking facilities. This is located on the just in front of the city hall in the city center. You know, people getting by bike with the public bike or the private bikes around, and their daily clothes, going to work, waiting for a green light in an intersection, to go to play tennis, for example, or to go anywhere. Also, a good percentage of women cycling, which is something good. And it indicates actually that the infrastructure is pretty safe. In a cold day in winter time, this rush hour in one of the pieces of bike lane that are most used around the city, we have there around 6,000, between 4,000 and 6,000 people cycling to that spot. Actually, it's the same location as before. Also, big traction of bike usage on leisure days. That's a Sunday morning in the city. You can see kids all around using of cargo bikes to get children to school. The Catholic Church actually using the bike, which is something really important here in Seville. People in tie, in jacket, going to work. Problems with parking. Parking into or just besides the central station full of bikes. The metro line. A big building where people use the bike to go to work. And this is all, again, the parking facility is located in the front of the city hall, in a plaza where all the bike infrastructure or the parking infrastructure is full of bikes. And, you know, again, people getting their bikes to go to work. So the strategies that we developed in Seville in order to make cycling a useful means of transportation were these ones. Actually, we consider cycling as a non-motorized means of transport, which is philosophically something that's really important to come from. So when you consider cycling as transportation, everything changes. So we wanted also the bike to, or improve the bike. We wanted to improve the bike to make urban context it was more sustainable from a mobility point of view. We wrote everything or all the strategies that we wanted to implement in the city into a master plan. We didn't have that master plan before. And also we developed what we call a special concept about cycling infrastructure, because of course we went to Amsterdam, we went to Copenhagen in order to learn how to do stuff and how to do things. But you know, we wanted to develop cycling in a city coming from almost zero cycling trips to something. So actually we understood at that moment that we had to develop a special, sort of as a starting phase of promoting the bike. So we actually, the strategies that we were learning at that point from Copenhagen or Amsterdam were in that sense a little bit useless. So that cycling infrastructure, we always worked under a network concept. We did not apply that idea that we wanted to have a bike lane maybe on this or one of that avenue in order to have a sort of experimental case where we had, well, after that we had to apply that experimental stuff to the whole city. So no, we were starting that, we understood that we wanted a concept about a network. So actually the network was the first stage of our journey. That network had to be continuous. So the continuity for us was really important. It has to be also uniform and recognizable. You have to take into account that at that point in the city, this infrastructure was something new that was added to the urban landscape. So it had to be recognizable by everyone at that moment. Also, it had to be direct without lots of detour factors. And something also that we understood is that it had to be placed on main avenues and streets. Understanding that on the residential areas, there was no need actually to separate traffics. And we wanted to go there, those places to for a more calming traffic strategy. But in the main avenues and streets where the difference in velocity and speed between motorized traffic and non-motorized traffic was important, we thought that we needed to separate that traffic, constructed this infrastructure separated from traffic, and also using the main avenues, because actually from an urban perspective and as a mobility perspective, people actually that live into an urban space understand the city and the mobility in that city, taking into account these big corridors and these mobility corridors that the main avenues are there for. So we wanted actually to for the people to understand that they could use they still could use the corridors, the main corridors, mobility corridors, in order to get by bike from A to B. So what we applied in Seville was a first phase of 80 kilometers of the cycling network of separated bike lanes and bike infrastructure, separated from motorized traffic. And this first phase, as I said, 80 kilometers, was built complete and as a single project. We like to say that that first phase, 80 kilometers, and I will show you a map following this slide of the network of this first phase. We like to say that it fell from the sky. I mean, it was built in just 2 years. As a single project. The project was the network. The project was not the bike lane in this or that avenue or that street. No, the project was actually the network, the building of the whole network at once, just in one time. We also, what we did was building a bidirectional path or a lane at sidewalk level. So the sidewalk level or the platform of the sidewalk was widened, and we put the bidirectional lane on top of that space that we got from road space, actually, or mainly from road space, as you can see here. So we extracted that space from parking slots or traffic lanes. As I said before, we also coordinated policies that were all included into the master plan. And something really important, there was a body called the cycling board, Seville board, that was a space for interchanging any ideas or debates about what we were doing at that point in every stakeholder that was actually interested on the cycling promotion process in the city. So this image that with it, I want to illustrate what we did actually in Seville. You can see there a 3-lane traffic avenue. These parking places were located just beside the the tree line. So we got this space from a traffic lane. We moved these parking spaces, and that space is gained from the road. We built a bidirectional lane on top of, again, the sidewalk level, at the sidewalk level, but again, from surface taken from cars. This is a typical intersection in the city, where also the traffics of pedestrians and cyclists are separated with no detours, direct, and so this with its traffic light. It was also painted in green. That is the color that was actually chosen on our internet poll that we made. So it's not red, it's green. And this is the shape of the first 80 kilometers that were built around the city. It was built from 2006 to 2008. So in just 2 years, we were able to build to cover actually the whole central area of the metropolitan area of the broader or the broad of the central city covered by cycling infrastructure. And this has been the evolution of the bike network from this starting point in 2005, as I showed you before. This is the first phase. Again, it was built 80 kilometers, built in just 2 years. The second phase, when 40 kilometers were added to those first 80 kilometers. In this point, the network had 120 kilometers. It was built also in just 2 years. So we came in just 5 years or 4 years from 15 kilometers to 120. And after that, some pieces of the network have been added. And right now, the shape of the cycling infrastructure on the network is just like this. Right now, in 2022, we have around 200 kilometers of cycling network all around the city. Again, the residential neighborhoods are not crossed by any separated cycling infrastructure, as you can see there. Even the historical center, where the road, the streets are really narrow, it's medieval shape. We almost don't have any separated cycling infrastructure. For example, in the historical center, the bikes have the priority all around, even there in the road. We also implemented a bike sharing scheme in the city with bikes really similar to the ones in Paris. Actually, the system was placed in the city just months before the one that was implemented in Paris. It's the same company, actually. And again, we implemented the same philosophy. We did not want to have maybe 10 or 15 stations and see how it worked in order to have a whole system. We went strictly from 0 to 2,050 stations. Right now we have 2,065 stations and 2,500 bikes. As you can see here, the red spots where the stations are located. They're located from 300 meters far away from one another. So actually you had the whole city, central city, again covered by this service of a public bike sharing scheme. So actually what happened is that the cycling mobility just raised up from the beginning, 2005, 2006, where the infrastructure was built, to the peak point of with more than 70,000 trips in a daily basis, working day in 211. From here, we went down a bit because we had a local government that was not supportive about cycling policies. And again, it raised up when we changed again of local government, and this going down in the last counting that we did in last November has to be with the COVID situation and also the raising of the usage of e-scooters. That is, its usage has almost doubled in just 2 years. This is the blue bar that you can see here. But taking into account that e-scooters are using actually bike infrastructure, you can see that we have more and more people actually using the bike infrastructure all along these years. Also, there has been some studies about the risk of serious injury when you cycle around the city. As you can see, it goes down a lot since we had the infrastructure placed around the city. Well, after the improvement of cycle mobility, there was written another, what we call modern, we call the program of bicycle in Seville with the scope of 2020. And here we would like to raise the modal share of cycling, which is actually pretty low in the city, even though right now we went from 0 to 6% all along the years, but we wanted to rise it again to 15% of total mobility, excluded pedestrians. If you exclude pedestrians, right now the mobility is around 9%. So we wanted to rise from 9 to 15. And that means that we would like to have 115,000 daily trips on a working day. We also wanted to improve the promotion of policies that go parallel actually from the infrastructure, including education and social interventions in homes, job hubs, and urban services. Also to improve substantially the possibilities and the security and the safety of the cycling parking policies all around the city, and to push for more usage of cycling with public transit, improving the intermodality between cycling and all these means of transportation. Of course, we wanted to improve. No, maybe we don't need right now to have more bike lanes. But yes, we would have to improve the quality of the cycling network. Maybe trying to improve the quality of the network and the capacity of the network. We are sure that if you increase the capacity, just as it happens when you increase the capacity of road surface for the cars, you would have a calling process for more cyclists around the city. And also we would like to improve the legal framework that is still a little bit old in the local legislation. This is the what we want to do for get a better quality infrastructure around the city. Here you can see the orange lines where there will be neighborhoods where they still don't have a cycling infrastructure, but just in the northern part, and maybe the productive areas you can see here in blue, where we would like to have more cycle lanes. But of course, we would like to the blue spots where you can see the improving of the quality of the cycling network, especially on the roundabout, the historical center, which is actually the cycling infrastructure with the most usage all around the network in the city. The improving the bike parking facilities, as I said, getting space from the road space, improving the parking facilities on the job buildings, working buildings in the university, and inside the schools. This is the inside of a metro station with its parking facilities. It's not very big, but it's really meaningful that we had none 5 or 6 years ago. And right now, you have a little one, a little facility there at the station, and it's always full of bikes. This is a study that we did also in with the University of Seville, where we wanted to prove how the range of the stations of the public bike transit scheme increases a lot when you use the bike. This the blue spots is the range when if you go walking to those stations, and the sort of purple range is the space that you cover with these lines if you prepare those stations to get more bikes or to get there by bike. This is a parking facility that has been built just 6 months ago on the main transit hub in the city with 250 parking spaces. I think Seville, I'm just finishing with this slide. It's an example that, tells us and teaches us that it always seems impossible until it's done. So it was a really political will at that moment to have that cycling infrastructure placed in the city. Of course, it is just the foundations of the first stage of the promoting cycling. And while I'm finishing with this, I'm just open to the any questions you would have. And don't forget to be happy cycling and walking. Thanks a lot. Muchas gracias. Merci.
Thank you very much, Manuel, for your presentation. I think it was a nice conclusion as well. That's what cycling and walking are about. It's also about pleasure and in moving in the everyday life.